All right, let's jump right in. What if I told you the real difference between winning and losing? It's not your strategy. Nope. It's actually a single choice you make in a split second, probably without even realizing you're making it. Today, we're going to unpack a powerful framework. This thing comes from a confidential report for expert traders, and it's all about separating that impulsive gut action from calm, intentional execution, especially, when everything's on the line.
So, reaction versus response. I mean, come on, they sound pretty much the same, right? Something happens, you do something. That's it. On the surface, it just seems like a simple cause and effect thing.
But, and this is the key, thinking they're the same thing is a huge mistake. It actually hides this really fundamental mechanic in how we all make choices. And getting this wrong, well, it messes with everything, from your trading performance all the way to how you lead a team. Okay, so what is the big distinction here? It all comes down to where the decision actually originates. Let's break down the two core ideas that this whole framework is built on. The difference between a decision being generated versus one that's activated.
So let's start with a reaction. Think of it like this. A reaction is literally created in the heat of the moment. Something unexpected happens. Bam, the market tanks, or some crazy news breaks. And that emotional jolt, that sudden fear or greed, that's what actually generates the decision to act.
Now, a response, totally different story. With response, the decision was already made. It was put together way back, during a time when you were calm and clear-headed, planning things out. So when the event happens, it doesn't create the decision, it just flips the switch. It activates a plan that was already there waiting.
And you know what? This really boils everything down to its core. Every single action you take can be traced back to one of two places. It's either born out of that heat of the moment emotion, or it's born from a pre-existing intention. That's it. Now here's a really common trap people fall into. They think, oh, if it's fast, it's a reaction. If it's slow and thought out, it's a response. But that's just wrong. This framework makes it super clear. Speed has absolutely nothing to do with it. I mean, just think about a sniper. They pull the trigger in a fraction of a second, right? But that is not a reaction. The decision to fire, if certain conditions were met, was made weeks, months, maybe even years before. The target appearing just checks the last box. It's a highly trained, pre-planned response that's just executed in an instant.
And then you've got the total opposite, right? A trader who just took a big loss and spends the next 3 hours analyzing everything. That looks thoughtful. It looks deliberate. But if what's really driving them is just pure anxiety, that desperate need to fix the pain, it's still just a reaction. It's just a slow one. See? The origin is everything, not how long it takes. And when you lay it all out side by side like this, the differences are just, wow, they're stark. A reaction is driven by raw emotion. It lights up the amygdala, that primal fight-or-flight part of your brain. But a response? That's driven by intention. It uses the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that does the rational, long-term planning. So this isn't just about different attitudes. We're talking about a fundamental split in your brain's wiring.
Okay, this is all fascinating stuff, but how does it actually apply in the real world? Well, this whole framework builds into a really powerful philosophy for anyone who has to operate in a chaotic environment. We're talking markets, sure, but also running a business or even just a high-stakes negotiation. Think about the market itself. The market doesn't have a plan, it has no intention, it's just a giant system that reacts to the collective fear and greed of everyone in it. It's a purely reactive machine. But you as an individual, you have the ability to have intention, and that, right there, is your biggest edge. And this idea even applies to when you do nothing at all. So ask yourself this. When you're sitting on your hands, are you frozen by fear? Unable to pull the trigger even though your plan says go? That's reactive paralysis. Or are you calmly exercising disciplined patience, just waiting because your preset conditions haven't been met yet? That's a responsive choice. See the difference?
All right, so the big question is, how do you get better at this? How do you actually train yourself to respond instead of just reacting? Well, the source material lays out a super clear 4-stage path to help you develop and master this skill. Okay, so this path to mastery has 4 stages. First, you've got emotional reaction. This is where pretty much everyone starts. Feelings and whatever's happening just drive all your actions. Then you move up to analytical response. Here, you're starting to consciously create rules and plans, but it's still kind of slow and clunky. The third stage is rule-based response. This is where your system starts to become second nature. It's your go-to way of operating. And finally, the goal,
embodied response. This is where your intentional, planned action becomes so fast, so fluid, it looks like a gut reaction. But it's not. It's just highly trained intention moving at the speed of instinct.
But, and this is so important, getting to that fourth stage isn't like crossing a finish line. It's not a one-and-done deal. Mastery is all about maintenance. Because even the absolute best can get knocked back into raw reaction mode when things get crazy enough. So the real skill isn't being immune to it. It's about being able to recognize, whoa, I've slipped, and knowing how to get back to your intentional state fast.
And this quote just nails the difference in motivation, doesn't it? A reaction is all about seeking relief. It's about stopping the pain right now. But a response, that seeks alignment. It's about sticking to your plan and your long-term goals, even if it feels uncomfortable in the moment.
This really brings it all together. The price, the market, the crowd, it just reacts. And you have a fundamental choice to make. You can either react right along with it, getting swept up in all that emotion, or you can choose to operate with your own intention and respond to the situation.
And really, that's what it all comes down to. Reacting is for survival. It's that primal emergency button we all have. But responding, that's how you thrive. That's the architecture of real, consistent success. So the final question, the one this whole framework really asks, is pretty simple. Which mode are you operating in?